marijuana. I gotta have all these read by tomorrow.
Pero mira este.
Gloria?
Hey, they put you here too?
Yes, they profile, us as symbols, how that goes.
Well, I mean, first the TSA stops me, and then this stupid thing with the Dream Act.
Well, my socialist views, Gloria. We're joined by being oppressed people, and both need to, find our moral independence, but I feel like ours supersedes the illegal immigration benefits. When I read the journal, The Lawmakers Should Reject the Dream Act, it highlighted a concern that this is not about protecting children, but it's about preserving the Electoral College through a cap and gown amnesty, meaning to create a large pool of voters with a strong political leaning so they could sway the Electoral College vote and maybe not have, my interest at heart.
Well, as I wrote in my Borderlands La Frontera, remember that's in Rio Grande, this land was Mexican once, Indian always, and is, and will always be, and always will be.
Well, exactly though. The Latino community wants to take the land back under political control. The Caballo River Collective statement that my colleagues and I wrote says we believe that the most profound and most radical politics come directly from our own identity as opposed to working to end someone else's oppression.
Attention passengers, this is the final boarding call for Flight 573 Master Narrative. I repeat, this is the final boarding call for Flight 673 Master Narrative. Thank you.
Wait, so what's the Dream Act? What's this Dream Act?
According to Congress.gov, the DREAM Act allows permanent residency to undocumented immigrants under certain predetermined conditions that include, but are not limited to, they must have been continuously physically present for 4 years prior to the bill being passed, must be younger than 18 years old when they came to America, and cannot have major criminal offenses, including federal and state, and must pass a health background examination.
What a great government we have.
Your government? What have they done now?
They just don't seem to understand the value diversity can bring to America.
May I have your attention, please? Flight 8291 Gender Equality has been delayed for engine repairs. I repeat, Flight 8291 Gender Equality has been delayed for engine repairs. Thank you.
You mentioned the Dream Act. One of my friends is a dreamer. She was brought here when she was 3 years old from Mexico, so she acts like a gringa. She's completely assimilated. She's thinking of going to college, but she probably won't go because of her financial situation.
As a mestiza, I believe that kids like her that are undocumented should be allowed to stay here.
Not to stay here. Do you know how much money it costs to support over 1 million immigrants that are trying to go to school? In this article right here, the DREAM Act would cost taxpayers billions of dollars. It states each illegal immigrant who attends a public institution will receive a subsidy from taxpayers of nearly $6,000 each year he or she attends, not including the other forms of financial assistance they might receive.
Yeah, but in the short term, in the long term, it would actually benefit the United States economy.
Well, let me butt in if I may. But I also read that, and I, as you may know, I am a French diplomat, and I can see both sides. According to the Journal of Common Market Studies that studies immigration in America and Europe, immigrants actually perform better than the natives do in America. Unfortunately, that is not so true in France. We are a welfare magnet to the less skilled immigrants, which hurts our economy.
Well, but it's going to cost us a total of $6.2 billion per year towards us hardworking taxpayers in America.
Wait, isn't financial aid being paid for with our taxes? How will this affect my friend that I mentioned earlier? She's thinking of going to college.
Well, that is something to consider. Unless you are putting in more tax money into the Pell Grant, according to the article, the DREAM Act would cost taxpayers billions of dollars by Stephen Camarada. These undocumented immigrants are taking away from the opportunities of natural-born citizens to go to school.
Well, exactly. You want me to pay more taxes when women's health care is in jeopardy? Centers have lost their funding, and and had been a key way for women to receive health services in impoverished areas. And as an underserved group, I feel our liberation is long overdue. Our needs should be met before the amnesty of a large population of new Americans comes into play.
Personally, I have experienced firsthand the manipulation that entails many minorities in order to get what they want from the West. I agree that America should be working first on equality amongst their own people before enticing outsiders to their country. However, my professional position as a diplomat veers for this DREAM Act because a study done by the JCMS proved that the undocumented immigrants that do come to America are hardworking and are assisting with lowering the unemployment rate, which ultimately helps the economy.
Let me ask you this. Do you really think the DREAM Act should be available for undocumented children?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Don't look at me.
They're still breaking the law. Wouldn't allowing undocumented children to become permanent residents be rewarding the parents for defying our immigration laws?
Yeah, but wouldn't you break the law for love?
Listen, children cannot be held responsible for their parents' decisions or control if they were brought to this side of the border or the other. Like I've said in 1963, when Apostle Paul answered the call for aid, I believe when we separate ourselves from one another, we are separating ourselves from God. Thus, this act should be available today to allow undocumented children in our countries that are not being recognized, and we need to embrace our brothers and sisters. Therefore, undocumented children should be granted freedom and equality of obtaining citizenship. I too have read the Stephen Camarada article about the influx of illegal immigrants, and you guys say it would reduce educational opportunities for U.S. citizens. But aren't children that enter this nation unknowingly entitled to the same education opportunities? I cannot be satisfied when children are stripped of their selfhood and robbed of their dignity by those who say they do not belong here. The bill would help young immigrants in their struggle to assimilate, to attend college and earn higher wages.
That's understandable, and it's a noble cause, but that is not a justification for violating the law, even if it is for a loved one. If immigrants from overseas have no other option but to endure scrutiny and have to patiently wait for their visa to be processed to be able to come here legally, then why can't other immigrants do the same?
It always comes down to the parents doing something illegal and passing the parents' crime onto their children. Does that seem reasonable? Do we blame children of killers for their parents' crime? No. So why do we blame illegal immigrant children for something their parents did? They had no control over that.
I agree with that. If I was sent to a country that I had never been to, just because my parents wanted to lead a better life, I don't know what I'd do. I'd be terrified.
We need to focus on securing our borders before we can give attention to making citizens out of lawbreakers. We need to secure the border from human traffickers and drug smugglers. Instead, border agents and federal detention facilities are overwhelmed with the influx of undocumented children. And that's according to the LA Times. I just don't think it's the right time to pass the DREAM Act.
You're saying the push for this bill is untimely and the nation must secure the border before doing anything else on immigration, but justice too long delayed is justice denied. Additionally, many of the undocumented children growing up in this country hardly have any memory of not being American, and their inability to become documented is denying them their human dignity.
Ladies and gentlemen, Flight 7592, Cultural Appropriation, is now boarding. I repeat, Flight 7592, Cultural Appropriation, is now boarding. Thank you.
All these children had to culturally appropriate to be able to live like an American. And then they're leaving their own cultures behind. They're changing their whole lives around. So why should these children be punished for something they have little to no control over? I mean, they couldn't just go against their parents on this major decision. They're their parents. They're their providers. They have to choose everything. Like, I lived in my own personal border. The line that was divided between American culture and being a mestiza and then everything else.
I don't think that the bill will help. It doesn't make a difference. Look at me. I'm a US citizen, but I'm racialized and discriminated against. The Orientalism that exists because I'm considered dangerous because of my ethnic background? They hear Muslim and think terrorist, jihadist, or Islamic extremist. Me being an American citizen made no difference. I was raised here all these years in this country and I'm still profiled. It doesn't matter how hard I work, I'll still get passed over for someone that's considered more American than me.
May I have your attention, please? Flight 370 Personification of Savagery has now arrived on gate B2. I repeat, Flight 370 Personification of Savagery has now arrived on gate B2. Thank you.
Well, in conversation with my French comrades and Mark, one of my friends, in my country it's also common for us to construct you South Asians and Middle Easterns as terrorists and savages. We have the most Muslim immigrants in our country and the most Muslim terrorist attacks in our country on an annual basis. That is also according to the JCMS. Why would we give you the benefit of the doubt just because you were born in America, especially if you still can't assimilate?
So that's the master narrative in France? Savage? Really? I'm wearing a $600 Charvet. I'm a corporate lawyer, and I used to work for the public defender's office. I'm not sure what about that screams terrorist to you, but I'm sure you can get away with saying that where you come from. Sounds like a whole lot of white privilege to me.
Jeez, what's wrong with people? I hate when people assume things about other people without knowing them first, of course. I've learned how wrong this is from my past experiences. It makes me feel like I have to hide everything I am or else face being an outcast. Actually, I have done that before. Every time I invite a girl over, I have to hide the fact that I am part of a government welfare program that gives food. I would be rendered speechless if one of them were to find out. I could never show my face again.
Anyways, like I said in 1967, y'all should have heard in the Other America speech, that I could see how there were little children forced to grow up with clouds of inferiority forming every day in their mental skies. I think this issue applies today to the undocumented children who are having to live in this other America of self-deprivation. And there needs to be action taken in legislation to have one nation where no group of people are excluded. Just like I could not go to a lunch counter and get a cup of coffee, or have the right to vote, in which my black brothers and sisters overcame these problems. But now we need to address undocumented children who should have the right to obtain a social security number and to vote.
May I have your attention, please? Altakaki airline flights are now canceled except for White Privilege Flight 566, which is right on schedule. I repeat, Altakaki airline flights are now canceled and White Privilege Flight 566 is now boarding. Thank you.
Au revoir.
Dang, I gotta stop eating that government cheese.